Hey guys, welcome back to the GM's Table. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody to like, share, subscribe, do all that great stuff. If you want to help support the channel more than that, check out, it just scrolled away, been in the doobly-doo below also. Check out the Patreon where you get videos early, PDFs, all that good stuff. Anyways, moving on, we're doing kind of a recap slash review because yesterday, or actually not yesterday, Tuesday when you guys are watching it, because this won't air till Friday, and a few minutes ago, like an hour ago, I ran this Dark Places and Demogorgons. And honestly, I ran it instead. I'm going to move it like that. I ran it instead of ETU. We didn't have everybody show up, and it was time for ETU. We actually haven't gotten to run ETU in about a month, which sucks. But I went, you know what? I want to stay in Pine Box. And this, it's a game where it says, in the 1980s, strange things happened everywhere. It's a game to make stranger things using basic edition D&D, basically. And I didn't actually change any of the rules. I just went ahead and said, rather than it being in J-Town, their setting, it's in Pine Box. We ran rules as is, just in Pine Box, and went, we're doing a flashback. Everybody gets to make a character. These are high school students in the 80s when something weird happened in Pine Box. And I had 3 of my players, which are kind of my go-to players lately, of Sandy, Mike, and Robert. And Sandy was Jared the Metalhead, which was super cool. Mike was... Where are my notes? Because I actually had all of it on there. Johnny. And Johnny was the Hood, the delinquent. And then Robert was Ambrose, the brain. He was the science geek. And I don't think he originally decided to be Ambrose, as far as the name. The thing is there's an optional thing for background. You roll twice on a D100 table, and he came from England. And his other thing was one of his parents is in an asylum. The most interesting, though, was Johnny, because Johnny rolled, you think your dad might be a werewolf. And maybe you are too. You'll find out when you're 16. And he rolled his age, and he was 17. I'm like, even odd. Do a dice roll. If it's odd, you're a werewolf. Because you got this, 1% chance of this happening. And I'm going to turn it into a 0.5% chance. And boom, he was a werewolf. Which actually, weirdly enough, doesn't break the game much. I mean, he gets to heal every hour. But this game is so deadly. That's fine. There's not really a lot of combat every hour. Anyways, that was that. We basically did a Breakfast Club thing where they were in the library. And kind of this whole thing of they're in the library for Saturday school detention, but the person watching them just leaves and lock them in the library. And it turns out they were in the library because they were suspected of blowing up toilets with cherry bombs. They couldn't figure out which of the 3 did it because all 3 were in the bathroom when the toilets blew up. Answer was none of the 3. Toilets blow up again. They hear it, and it's actually a monster coming up from the sewers. So they're dealing with this weird, raptor-headed slime lobster monster with a scorpion tail. This makes some weird creatures, and they're awesome. And even when I just describe how they look, people are like, no, I don't want to deal with that. So they got to do that. We got a lot of good role play, and it was a really simple, straightforward session, but also the whole session took less than 2 hours after character gen. They, again, for the recap, they were hanging out in the library, got some great RP with the librarian, who was the person who hates them that left, then got some good RP with each other. Then, while one person was looking to escape through the ceiling tiles, they caught a glimpse of the monster. And when you see something supernatural, it's a terror check. It's just a flat D20 roll based on a DC of how scary the creature is. You do have a courage save. That's for non-supernatural stuff, and once you've passed your terror check. Initial encounters with supernaturals are always terrifying, which I love. If you pass the terror check, fine, you make courage checks from then on. If you don't, next time you see it, another terror check. You keep making this very hard terror check until you're done. This one actually wasn't as terrifying as they could be. It was a DC 12, but it means you gotta roll a D20, unmodified, get 12 or better. So they go, catch a glimpse, he passes out, he faints for about a minute based from terror. They go, But then they're like, we've been in here too long. We sped up some time after about 3 hours of detention. It was Saturday detention. They knew they were in here 8 hours. It's basically a clock. By 3 hours, they start looking to break out. And that's when I ratcheted it up. They found a window on top of a bookshelf. They're trying to break open the window, pry open the window, and the body of a janitor falls. Courage check. Dead body is not supernatural. It's just scary. So courage check. Everybody passes, so everybody's just like, oh, hey, a dead body. Nobody's freaked out by it, which is great. Because, again, we have a metalhead who, in this game, metalheads are 100%, they're with demonic forces. You eventually get to summon demons as a metalhead. They're metalhead, a hood, that literally starts with both a good bit of cash and a good bit of cash worth of either stolen goods or illegal drugs. And this science whiz kid, fine, but the science whiz kid starts with illegal fireworks. And so, none of them were, upstanding students. So they kind of made this ragtag group. They eventually break out. They see the thing. I had it where while they were working, because they were then arguing about the window was so high up, nobody wanted to jump. They saw an extension cord behind a bookcase. How do we get out? Get to the extension cord as the creature's lowering itself from the hole in the ceiling behind them. They see it, freak out. Next failed terror roll, somebody runs. And they have the open window now. So it's like, well, yeah, you run what you would think is as a way. Out the window. Make your deck save to land. Tumbles. Nobody died. Nobody actually took more than 1 or 2 points of damage. In fact, in the entire session, the monster never actually made an attack roll, which I think is very interesting. It was always about setting up and staying away from the monster, and it was scary because they knew if the monster hit them even once, they were probably dead. There was no, oh, we're going to go fight it. There was stuff like, we're trapped in the AV room because they were recording a tape of Ambrose, the science whiz kid, because they'd found out that the monster was hunting him because Ambrose threw firecrackers in it and made it mad, so it was actually hunting it vindictively. So they're trying to make this lure by taping him, and they're going to set up the tape with an AV, TV, and VCR and stuff in the freezer, because they also found out the thing's weakness was cold. While they're taping it, it shows up. The thing is it came through by bursting pipes, so the school was also slowly flooding, so they electrocuted the hell out of it. Instead, their plan never actually worked. They never had to. They got foiled, but then they dealt with it. And every time it showed up, they kind of dealt with it how they could and ran, which I love. It really felt like an actual horror movie. And it was some great comedy. Because, Jared, our metalhead, in his background, he has an identical twin. And his two things were he has an identical twin, and his mom is the local weather woman that everyone, has the hots for. So when they first ran from it, they went to Jared's house, where where Chuck Rogers, the traffic guy, was there to pick up his mom, who's constantly hitting on him. And he actually slammed Chuck in the van when the mom wasn't there and threatened him, you ever hurt my mom. He failed a fear check and wet himself, which was great. So we had stuff like that. After dealing with that, they actually got to meet the twin, and the twin of the metalhead is this super preppy guy named Georgie. And he had the water polo team coming over for a party. However, the hood sold him some cocaine, as they were passing. So it's just this great bit of levity. However, the tension was also always on. Like I said, this is a recap and a review. I'm not going into all the mechanics. I will say, if you're interested in it, the classes, there are a ton, okay? There's the kid scientist, that's what I kept calling him, the whiz kid. Kid scientist, nerd, geek, jock, extreme athlete, the karate kid, the breakdancer, the goth, the metalhead, the preppy, the princess, the teen heartthrob, the bully, the hood, and the punk rocker. Yeah, all of those are unique classes. And yes, geek and nerd are vastly different. The geek is actually all about everyone who hangs out with the geek and is friends with the geek gets a buff to their saves. But the geek doesn't. So even the artwork for it reminds you a lot of Velma. And it's the geek always is the one that suffers, but by being there, everybody else can kind of withstand stuff, so you want to keep the geek around. They're all interesting mechanics. The punk rocker, or not the punk rocker, the metalhead, as we were saying, he eventually gets a barbarian rage where he taps into the power of demons, though I love his level 3 one is the power of Dio. Just if you're into 80s rock, it's amazing because it's just the power of Dio. And what it is is once per day he can just go, I rolled a 20. He calls upon the power of Dio and rolled a 20. It doesn't take itself seriously, but the fear is there. One of those things is this isn't going to usurp Savage Worlds as my favorite overall system, but I also have a big fondness for red box style basic D&D. But it always does fantasy. There's a couple games like White Star where they do sci-fi, but my favorite genre is modern horror. This is basic edition D&D modern horror. Not that like modern horror with a splash of comedy, and this is so rooted in the 80s. You can tweak it a bit, and it doesn't have to be in the 80s, but play it in the 80s. There's one of the things I love, there's a table that's a side-by-side table of what things are today versus what they were in the 80s, where it's like MTV is YouTube. Suits with shoulder pads are suits without shoulder pads. Like it doesn't take itself seriously. It actually has like yearbook photos and stuff in it mixed with the art. So you see actual photos from the 80s. It is amazing. I cannot recommend this game enough. I'm about to go on vacation next week. In fact, I said this is going to air Friday. This might get pushed back to next Tuesday or next Monday. Next Tuesday, I leave for vacation with my wife, and we're going to be gone till like Saturday, and they'll be back. That Monday, I'm going to start running one-shots of this. And I've already put out to like my basic edition D&D players of this, and I got people interested. My regular players are like, we want to keep playing this. We don't want to give up ETU, and I don't plan on giving up ETU, but we want more of this too. This is so much fun. And that's the best way to put it. This game was just fun, and it was fast, and it was scary, but it was lighthearted. The threat of death was constant, but it wasn't dreary. Anyways, with that, I will catch you guys next time. Bye. Video. Check out another video over here. Whatever it is, it's probably pretty good. Don't forget to like, share so other people can find the channel, and subscribe right up there. YouTube now won't let me put a link to the Patreon, but there is a link down in the description below. So if you want to help support the channel, check that out, and I will catch you guys next time.